Hey there folks, so today's video is Gado Gado salad, or mix salad as it translates into English, and that's the beauty of this one. It's all about what you want to mix in with it. The peanut sauce is the mainstay as far as I'm concerned. That's the thing that makes this salad, but then you can throw in lots of other different things with it as well. So without further ado, let's crack on and let's make some Gado Gado salad. So the first thing I like to do is to prepare my eggs, because you can get these boiled, sit them out of the way and come back to them later when you want them. So start them off in cold water, bring to the boil and cover them, and you're going to boil them for between 6 and 12 minutes depending on how hard you want that yolk to be. And once you've cooked them for your preferred time between the 6 and 12 minutes as mentioned, you're going to take them off the heat, and using a pair of tongs you're going to take them out of the boiling water and plunge them into cold water. And you're going to leave them to cool in the cold water. Then you can sit them in the fridge until you want to use them, either in the cold water or just on the eggs on their own. I tend to keep them in the water, that way they don't roll over and smash. And next up is 700 to 750 grams of your preferred potato for making your boiled potatoes. Alternatively, you can also roast them, which I'll show you how to do roasted potatoes in a separate recipe. Roast potatoes with this are absolutely gorgeous. But back to the boiled potatoes. So we're going to peel our potatoes, and because these are a sort of medium sized potato, we'll be halving them, and maybe a couple of them will be quartering them. We don't want them too small, but we don't want them too large either. You know how you like your own potatoes, I'm guessing. Cut them to that size. The main thing being, we want all our chunks to be of a similar size. If they're a similar size, they all cook evenly. If they're drastically different in size, you're going to have some hard potato, and you're going to have some lovely cooked potato, and you might have some mushy potato. So try and make sure all your chunks are of about the similar nature and size. And we then want to add our potatoes to a medium-large pan which has got cold salted water in it. I prefer to add them to cold water and bring to the boil rather than plunging straight into boiling water. And we then want to bring our potatoes to the boil, and once at the boil we're going to cover either with a lid or with some form of splash cover. Whichever way you want to go, either is perfectly acceptable. And we're going to cook these for about 16 to 18 minutes. At the 16-minute mark, we want to prick them with a fork, and if our fork slides in nice and easily, they're ready. If there's quite a bit of resistance, they need another minute or two, and that's the best way to check if your tatties are ready. And once ready, just remove them from the heat. Just make sure again you have pricked them, do more than one, and if they're all feeling good, remove them from the heat, and we're going to drain them in a colander and then just leave them in the colander to cool. And you can either wait until your potatoes are done, or you can press on and deal with all of this whilst the potatoes are cooking. It's entirely your choice, depends on how much of a rush you're in. But we're going to peel a nice and large carrot. We don't want a small one here, we want a good bit of crunch added to the salad, and the carrot's a perfect way to do that. So peel a large carrot. And once peeled, we want to top and tail the carrot, and then we're going to half its length just so it's easier to get our chopped carrot from that stage. And once it's been halved in length, we're going to take each of the halves and half them along their width. So we've got as we see here. And from here, we want to start creating our matchsticks. Now my preferred way of doing it is chop down the centre, and from the centre work out towards each edge. You can normally get 2 slices, sometimes 3 slices, depending on how meaty that carrot was to start with. And once we've cut all the way along the lengths, we're just going to knock them over onto their sides and matchstick them further by cutting each of the individual strips down into smaller slices, just as you see me doing here. And once we've got generally uniform sized matchsticks, just transfer them onto a plate and set them aside until you need them. Next up, we can prepare our cucumber. Now, as most supermarkets sell your cucumbers wrapped in this plastic, ideally just chop it down the middle, leaving the plastic on, because you can then take the little bit of plastic you're ripping off here and put it across the other one, sealing your cucumber again and keeping it protected without having to put anything else on it.
And once the plastic has been stripped off it, grab your peeler and very gently peel the cucumber. We don't want to take off any of the flesh part. We really just want to graze the cucumber to remove the flesh, to remove the skin, but leave the flesh alone. And then it's the exact same procedure as I did with the carrot. You halve your cucumber down its width, and then I start in the middle to create my matchsticks, to create my juliennes. So in the middle, and then work out from the middle, and then back to the middle and work out to the other side. And then again, just like the carrots before, flip them onto their sides, and we're going to then slice them down to the appropriate size. Again, try and keep everything roughly uniform. And at risk of repeating myself, just like the carrot, transfer it onto a small plate and set aside until you're ready to use it. You can make these things hours in advance and store them in your fridge, and that way the salad is really dead easy to go. The only thing you'll be really doing come dinner time is actually making the peanut sauce. And just as with the cucumber, we're going to half our bell pepper, and we're going to store the other half for use another day. I tend to have the salad 2 days in a row because I've got all the ingredients the way the recipe's made out. But once you have halved your bell pepper, you're going to discard all the pith and discard all the seeds before we julienne the pepper. So we're going to be again cutting it into long matchsticks. When it comes to julienning peppers, I like to start on the outside and then work my way across to the other side. Unlike how I've told you how I do the carrot and how I do the cucumber, where it's that centre slice. Here it's from one side all the way across to the other. And once we've done that, just knock all your pieces together so they're roughly sitting in line, and then we're going to half them. And that's us got our pepper bits ready for the meal. And just like before, transfer onto a plate, set aside until we're ready to use these. And next up is our syboe, which is the Scots way of saying spring onion. We only need one if it's a large one like this. If it's smaller spring onions, then we're going to need 2. But take and slice at the leafy end, and then we're going to remove all the grit. The way we do this is just run it under water and make sure you get your fingers in where you've sliced down the leaves towards the stalk. I failed to mention it, but before washing our syboe, we're going to discard the root end, so it's just a quick slice, and knock it in your green recycling bin, or whatever colour it is if you're in a different country, I assume. But you're going to put it in your composting bin, and then all we do is nice thin slices, just 3mm, 4mm really at most apart. And we're going to again, as before, store them in a container until ready. This time a small ramekin does, because it is only a small spring onion, or only a spring onion. And by this time your eggs should have cooled plenty. So we're going to deshell our eggs. To do that, just give them a bit of a bang on the work surface, and then in with the fingers to peel the eggshell off. And once your eggs have been deshelled, we're going to quarter them. So just half along its length, and then half each half. And we'll have lovely quarters. As I'd mentioned earlier, these were 6 minutes, so you can see the yolk is sort of completely solid, but there's that glossiness nature to it, where it's almost still a liquid, but it's just turned solid, which is the way I particularly like it, but cook them the way you prefer. Now though, it's the most important part of your Gado Gado salad as far as I'm concerned. The peanut butter sauce, and this is delicious. So make sure you use a nice natural peanut butter like you see here. Generally a good way to tell if it's a good natural one is if you've got the separation that you see it here. All my peanuts, or the peanut butter, has sort of separated, and all the oils have risen to the top and everything else has solidified in the bottom. Now this has been sitting on my shelf for several months because I bought a few of them and I haven't got through them all yet, so that's why it is so compact and so hard. When you get them straight out of the shop, they're not normally just as compact and hard as this, but it does take a bit of work no matter what stage they're in to get everything back and running and smooth. So I'm just going in here with a butter knife to break it all up, mash it through and work it into itself. That's the way to tell it. Unlike your big brand ones, which you get out, maybe your supermarkets, which is immediately ready to use, they're not as good a peanut butter for making this sauce. The natural ones here, with pretty much nothing in them, that's the way to go. And as you see here, after a few minutes of working, we've got it back to this lovely consistency. You can see it dripping off the butter knife. That's it, absolutely perfect and ready to use. So to what is likely your smallest sauce pot, we're going to add 4 tablespoons of the peanut butter. If it's slightly over because there's some stuck to the side, don't worry, but we're aiming as close as damn 4 tablespoons. And if you have a lime, use the juice of a lime. If you don't have a lime, use 2 tablespoons of bottled lime juice. The lime is the better way to go, but I'm using the lime juice here to show you it's perfectly acceptable and it still gives one hell of a damn tasty sauce at the end. Next up, we need 1 tablespoon of our runny honey. Preferably clear, but doesn't have to be clear, but it does need to be a nice runny honey. Runny honey, I like saying that. And again to the same pot, it's then 1 tablespoon of dark soy sauce. More traditional recipe, instead of the honey and the dark soy sauce, we'd be using ketchup manis, which is, excuse the pronunciation if it's not quite right, but which is an Indonesian soy sauce which is sweet and thick. Now, depending how thick you want your peanut sauce to be, we're going to be adding between 30 and 50 millilitres of water. I start with the 30 mils, add it to the pot, and if at the end it's still too thick, I'll add a little bit more water. Most of the time though, the 30 mils is absolutely adequate. And once that's been added, grab yourself a small silicone spatula and we're going to stir everything together. The aim is really to try and combine everything else in with the peanut butter, so we've got everything a bit more runny. And from here, we're looking to add 1 chopped garlic clove. Again, I'm using a frozen one here. Fresh is always better, but I'm trying to show you these sort of ingredients work really well and still give you something wonderful at the end. So we're getting out our garlic and then we're going to give it a quick defrost of 15 seconds, maybe even as short as 10 seconds in the microwave, just so it's soft enough to chop. And we're looking to really finely chop it. We don't want big chunks here. We're not mincing it entirely, but we really are finely chopping it before we add it to the pot. And now we're going to add a little bit of crushed chili flakes. Half a teaspoon I think is ideal, but you could add more if you wanted more heat. But there's so much going on flavour wise in this sauce that I don't think it really requires much more heat. But we do have to limit the amount of chili flakes we use as well, because I've mentioned in our videos, the wife is becoming intolerant to chili, so we need to keep it to a minimum. But this particular recipe, I don't actually think it needs any more anyway, but experiment with the heat for your own taste. And once again, stir everything together. As we see here, it should be really nice and smooth and moving around the pan very easily. Now, you don't want to heat it yet, but sit it on your ring because it's only going to take a couple of minutes to bring to temperature. It's only a gentle heat and just a slight warmth is all we're looking to put through it when we do heat it. Now, I leave my lettuce to prepare until we're just about to start cooking and serving because I just prefer to do it that way. You could shred your lettuce earlier on, but this is one I leave until we're just about ready to use it. So it's just half an iceberg lettuce we're looking for, which we're going to half and store the other half until we want to use it. And then it's just a case of chopping off the root end, discarding any bad leaves that you see, and then we're just going to put some nice slices down through the leaf. We don't need to make it too small, just one angle of cut generally does the job very well. And now it's a case of just presenting your plate so it looks really nice. I like to put a bed of the actual lettuce across the bottom of the plates, and then we're going to build and stack everything else on top of the lettuce. If you wanted, you could go with more lettuce, but I think this is just about the ideal amount. But presentation wise, it could look nicer with a bit more lettuce, but for filling wise, I think it's just about the right amount. If you then use your potatoes as a sort of divider by spreading them around the plate, we can then stack our different vegetables between them as we put them on the plate. And if you think of your plate as thirds, what I do is I put in 1/3 the carrots, In a different third, we're going to add the cucumber, pointing to the middle just like the carrots were. And in the last third, it's our bell peppers, again pointing towards the middle, is the way I like to present it, but you present it how you want to. And next up, I like to stack my eggs in the centre. Again, go for something that's visually appealing. And now it's time to sprinkle our syboes, our spring onions. We're just going to sprinkle that over the centre of our salad. And now that our plates are ready, a very gentle heat here, I mean nearly as low as your cooker can go. We're just going to bring a little bit of heat into the sauce. We're not looking to bring it really high, we're just looking for a tiny little bit of warmth through it. So it only takes 2 minutes, 3 minutes, doesn't take long at all. We're going to gently heat it up. And whilst it is heating, grab yourself your salt shaker or your salt grinder and pepper shaker and grinder, and we're going to add just a little bit of salt and just a little bit of pepper to the salad. Just a few grains, not a lot, but enough to give the flavour across it. And once our sauce has got that little bit of heat to it, it says already, it doesn't need to be very hot, but once it's got that little bit of heat to it, we're going to drizzle it across our salad. Now the way I like to do it is get myself one of these long handled type teaspoons and just go in and drizzle it across. Try not to destroy all your presentation, but also try to get some across each of the different elements. So some on the potatoes, some on the carrots, some on the peppers, some on the cucumbers. That sort of idea.
So there we go. Gado Gado salad. Mix salad if you want the English translation of Gado. And it's mix because it's Gado Gado. So one lovely plateful peanut sauce Gado salad. I'm not going to try and put a bit of everything in my mouth. One of the nice things about this is you get lots of different flavours from it. But the point of the mix is you can put lots of different things on it. I don't know what to take a bite of. I think I'll have a bit of the pepper. The sauce itself is really, really rich. It's got that tanginess, I think you can hear it in my voice. That tanginess, that bite to it that catches you in the back of the throat. If you want, you can make it hotter by adding more chilli. As I've mentioned on other videos, my wife's becoming intolerant to chilli peppers, so we can put the barest amount in because she loves the flavour of it, but with an intolerance developing we can't really risk it putting it much more in. But it doesn't really need the heat as far as I'm concerned, because there's such a tanginess, a bite to the peanut sauce anyway. A lot of the time traditionally it's served with boiled vegetables if I remember right, but we tend not to do that. It's more the sauce I'm interested in, and then you put your various different vegetables in it. The potatoes help fill you up so that you don't end up really hungry after your salad, so something like a potato is a good thing to add, or a bit of tofu is a good thing to add to it, and amongst your other vegetables. But I like adding the cucumber, the pepper and the carrot. I think they're a good mix of different mouth textures that you get out of this meal along with the lettuce. So I'm off to enjoy my dinner. If you do make it, let me know. And again, thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it when you watch my videos and when you comment down below. So stay safe. All the best. Bye for now.